excited to welcome Robert. Robert's in Arkansas, and there's a lot of really interesting things happening with medical marijuana and CBD in Arkansas. So he is here to kind of give us his story and the story of what's happening, what he's seen and what he's seeing in Arkansas, and also looking at some of the financial services challenges, and then we'll collectively kind of talk about some of the solutions that are available. So welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I want to thank you folks for putting out the invitation. It is greatly appreciated because of what I do with the facts behind the headlines. It's not often that I get invited to have a public discussion because most people don't like the facts. You know, they want to see the social site and the social hype. But for over a decade, we've been debunking myths and untruths, and as we started out several years ago, clearing the smoke and mirrors of 80 years of bad information.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that. Let me just also do a quick introduction. Dwayne, just introduce yourself briefly, and obviously you are very out there in the world, and I know you had actually initially connected with Robert through his site, Cannabis News and Politics. If you just want to give us a brief introduction on yourself as well.
Yes, Wayne Weiseflu. I'm from Denver and got in this industry about 4 years ago. I was in the automotive industry with BMW and Mercedes for about 25 years in finance and service, and just saw a need a few years back. Friends that had dispensaries, they were just going through all sorts of financial challenges, whether it was banking, loans, credit card processing, anything like that. They were just having trouble. So I decided to go on a quest and find decent lenders, processing companies, banks, and it took a while to get all that stuff gathered up, and launched a company a couple years ago, and we've been doing tremendous ever since. Exponential growth every month. It just seems like it's getting better and better. Challenges, big time. Currently going through one right now with one of the challenges. So yeah, it's been fun. It's exciting. It's good to see that we can help people out. We're just not in it for the deal. It's, hey, you know, if we take care of these guys, take care of our clients, the money will follow. We're just going to have happy clients, and we're building a name, we're building credibility, and it's been fun doing it.
Yep, and it's not easy. I know that. It's been a long ride for a while. Not easy. All right, so let's start with our guest, Robert. Yeah, so tell us your story now. Tell us about Cannabis News and Politics. You're obviously an advocate. You've been doing this for decades. We will in a moment get back to the beginning of when it started, but just tell us what you're seeing on the scene now. And obviously with medical marijuana, that's a huge change, and I don't know how anticipated that vote was in the state, or how welcome it was when the people sort of voted to say, hey, we want this.
Well, actually, in Arkansas, medical cannabis goes all the way back to the 80s. You know, it's been tried by citizens' initiative, petitions, and legislation since, the early 80s. So after much to do that was to do wrong, we finally got it on the ballot, got it, the people approved it by, I believe it was 57%. It was up there. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me. But now, after 2 years of the people's voice being heard, we still don't have cannabis on the street yet. It's turned into political gain for the few and not political benefit for the many. And between our governor, Asa Hutchinson, who used to be former DEA, as the director of the DEA, and the powers that be, I personally, there's still going to be some issues. And Arkansas in the future is going to have a very large issue because unlike, and I repeat, unlike other states, they did not exercise their 10th Amendment right under the Constitution, and the Section 20 of the amendment allows it to remain under federal control. So that has yet to be seen on how that's going to play out.
Elaborate a little bit more on that. Is that just they're not allowing sort of, yeah, I'm not as familiar with what.
Okay, the rest of the states that have went industrial, medical, or recreational, of exercise state rights. In other words, they've written laws, amendments, whatever process they used, and they said the state is going to run the cannabis, hemp, marijuana, whatever they called it, in their state, and they were going to, basically, go against what the federal government wanted, which is their right under a state, under the rights of the state under the 10th Amendment. Arkansas, in its wisdom, in their amendment, Section 20 says that it will remain illegal under federal law, which means that nothing changes in the state. Now, we all know that under the black and white of the law, as it is interpreted by 95% of the people, marijuana is illegal under federal law. Mm-hmm. Well, we put that in the amendment that it will remain so. So unlike other states that are changing for their state, we decided to have a state law that can be immediately superseded by the federal government.
So let me clarify this for my own mind. So Arkansas legalizes it by the state, but in the amendment, they have it still in their federal control, so it's not legal. So they legalize something that's not legal, and it's be kept illegal. That is crazy.
Well, and I screamed and hollered when that first initiated act, was being drafted. Screamed and hollered at the, town hall meetings, and, it was, we've got to put it in there. Nothing will pass. We've got to put it in there. Nothing will pass. Well, that was a bogus BS statement because of the two initiated acts, or actually the two constitutional amendments that I wrote and got approved to collect signatures. Neither one of them had that statement in it.
Oh, wow.
I also want to reiterate and get you to expand a little bit on, in looking at states like Oklahoma, who has already approved over 1,300 licenses for cultivation, and Arkansas, as I understand it, there's only 5, and they're very large, and there's a lawsuit underway to expand that to 8. So that's a huge difference in economies of scale here between Oklahoma versus Arkansas, over 1,000 versus, under 10.
Well, another number we've got is we're entirely limited to the state at 38 dispensaries.
And it's a large state. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I remember one time calculating that 13 New Jerseys fit into one Colorado. And Arkansas seems comparable in size. It's a little bit smaller, but it seems comparable in size to Colorado. So 38 dispensaries over that area is not very many.
Well, no, and it's it's beyond ridiculous because basically in landmass we're about the size of New Mexico. You could almost lay one on top of the other, and it's I don't know. I've got several names for it that we can't put on the air, but when big business. This is Arkansas is a prime example of big business, and I'll give you black and white. The previous Attorney General, who I sued, or attempted to, I got told and filed in the wrong court because I had to do it on my own because I couldn't find a lawyer that would help me. Okay, so I filed suit against the state Attorney General. He is now one of the power players in one of the grow operations. So he did not approve several of my ballot attempts and initiated acts attempts to get it in front of the people, but now he's one of the people involved in one of the grow operations.
Wow. And I've looked at those applications, and they are very big business applications, unlike the ones that I'm seeing in other states like Missouri, like Oklahoma, where it really is there to seemingly to support local industry and a lot of landowners and smaller businesses. The applications that I saw come through for Arkansas were quite large commercial endeavors that were very well organized and very well funded.
You're exactly right. I've got the saying that we've used in the paper. Getting a grow operation in Arkansas, like the regulations, was like setting up your own private nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yep. No, I mean, and I have referred, because I speak to a lot of cultivators in in these emerging states, and a lot of the questions that I would get from cultivators in Utah and Oklahoma and Missouri, I would refer them to the Arkansas. Because all of those applications are online, including the 5 that were granted. And actually, one of the, as I understand it, one of the cultivation facility, or 2 of the cultivation facilities are owned by one company. They were granted 2 licenses. So I guess I've referred people to them to say, hey, this is what a big business professional application looks like. And you can sort of see who won those licenses and what they came to the table with, which was quite significant.
Well, exactly. I mean, you had to have a very large bank account even to apply.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
which took your small, you know, as a colloquial saying, took your local mom and pop totally out of the business and out of the realm of it. And, you know, God forbid, I mean, we can have Adderall in a candy at any drugstore, but we can't have, you know, somebody like myself who's a disabled vet, you know, growing my medicine in my vegetable garden. We wouldn't want that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. I'm going to move to our next slide here, which is you as a U.S. Navy veteran. You served, and we appreciate your service. And tell us about that side. You know, your story of where you're from and joining the Navy and your experience.
Well, to try to understand my background, I was born in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but prior to joining the service at 17, I had lived in most every state west of Texas. My stepfather was part of a heavy equipment operation company, so when anything was built, we moved. So, you know, 6 to 8 months was a long time in some places. So I joined at 17, turned 19, 20, and 21 in Vietnam. I spent an additional I got a total of 16 and a half years in the Navy. I was a machinist mate, civilian equivalent to a thermal engineer. I was no longer physically able to do my job. It was a specialty job. So I got out after 16 and a half, and I picked up full-term disability in the mid-90s, I believe, is when they finally gave me my full medical, my medical. So, in a nutshell, I've been in almost every free country in the Western Pacific. I've been to Africa. I was stationed in Japan for 2 years. My daughter was born in Japan. She held dual citizenship until she was 18. I've got, I don't know, I call it more world experience because, our financial gentleman here, if you want to talk economics, live in the Philippines. You want to talk crowding and street markets, live in Japan. You want to see what real naked poverty is, go to Mombasa, Africa. So I bring a little, bring a little worldview to what I do. On the issue, one of my commands, I was a federal licensed military law enforcement in California. So I've dealt with the drug and the cannabis issue at the federal level, militarily wise. I'm also a member of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, as a former LEO at the military. Life member of the VFW, and I've held political office in Arkansas as the Libertarian Chair and Vice Chair. I ran and got a nomination for the Arkansas House, except the lawsuit wasn't settled in time. So in 2018, I'd have to get the exact dates. I mean, things mumble together at my age anymore. Even though I was running for office, my name was not on the ballot. So it's been a mixed modge of history with what I've been doing. And currently I'm on a small hobby farm of a little over 100 acres that I can certify organic. So my goal when they first came out with the Industrial Hemp Act here in Arkansas is I wanted to grow certified all organic / natural seed for the industrial hemp, and not the CBDs, for the hemp plant itself for other purposes. And but even that is so cost prohibitive, and I for one will not give up my Fifth Amendment rights just to grow a plant.
Right. Yep. Okay. Now let's just talk a little bit about when you serve obviously in serving Freedom Isn't Free and the aftermath, and obviously as a veteran and what you've seen and why cannabis, sort of became such an important cause and an important part of your life, and pursuing all of these, the beginning of the advocacy work that you do.
Well, it's sort of twofold. A long time ago, I lost an aunt to cancer in South Dakota, and this was decades ago, literally. And even back then, the family doctor said, the left-handed twist will help you out. And this was, like I say, decades ago, when it was definitely illegal. It was more, strictly recreational. And she outlived what the doctors had said. She finally succumbed to the disease. My wife is a cancer patient, or a cancer survivor, and I'm a disabled vet with physical issues. And the government has absolutely no problem with 20 or 30 pharmaceuticals, but every one of those has got a side effect that is either deadly or worse than the problems I already have. So I deal with it on a daily basis. People have a pain scale. Well, in the normal world, I wake up with a 6, and that's my 0 day, and it can go from there and go up. So it's actually ludicrous when I can go out here and use almost any other plant that grows in this forest that I live in, and have no problem, and it's legal. Even belladonna, I can use it, and that stuff, if you don't know what you're doing with it, can actually kill you. But I can't use a plant that has been here since creation that has killed no one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. That was like the first, as I was introduced to marijuana in 8th grade. I was 13 at the time, and it made no sense to me. I was like, why? How can a plant be illegal? That just is not logical. That was just my thought about it. And I've remained thinking the same thing ever since. It just doesn't make any sense that you can outlaw a plant.
Well, but here's the devil behind the details. Everybody says that marijuana is illegal. Well, it's actually cannabis, but we'll use marijuana because it's listed in the federal law. Well, I've got a question for you. Is driving illegal?
If you don't have a license, yes, it is. Or if you are driving under the influence, or other intoxicated, or a danger or hazard to others, I guess the answer would be yes.
Okay. How about fishing and hunting? Is it illegal?
They want you to have a license and go where you're supposed to go.
Michael's in the business of finance. Can he do that without a license?
Some aspects of finance you can, and some aspects of finance you can't.
Okay. Well, what would you say if I told you that since the Controlled Substance Act went into law in the 70s, that the only reason it is illegal is that nobody applies for the permit?
So there's a permit, you're saying, that there
is an actual DEA diversion permit in Title 21 of the Federal Controlled Substance Act to grow, manufacture, produce, sell the cannabis plant in any and all forms. And it's been there since 1970. So why is it illegal when it's no more illegal than driving your car? All you've got to do is get a license.
Mm-hmm. I can't speak further to that. I did not know it existed, and I did not know that. What do they? I know nothing. I really don't know anything about this. As far as this is why you're the advocate. Let's move on to the next slide. Advocacy and prohibition and all of these. Ending the madness, and so So please elaborate.
Well, it's actually the shortcut link is, as a matter of fact, after today, after we get off, I will send you the exact link to it. You can apply online to manufacture, produce, grow, sell, test, whatever, the cannabis plant in any of its forms through the DEA. And that form has been online since we've had computers online, and they put it there. And it's been part of the hard copy law for, since its conception. Now, do they issue permits? Not often. But the point being, it's not illegal because there's a permit process.
Fair. That's a very good point. That's a very fair
And if you look, if you're in the broadcasting, and let's take it one step further, they say, well, you got, it's federal. Well, there are several industries that require a federal permit. If you're a broadcaster, you got to have a federal permit. If you sell stocks on on the federal exchange, there's a lot of those companies that require to have federal permits. If you work for the Department of Fish and Game as a fishery, you've got to have a federal permit.
Yep. No, those are all fair. So let's bring it back to a bit of what we're seeing today. I mean, obviously there are permits but now the law, it's still, as you said, in Arkansas, it's written as this is still under federal prohibition, but we're moving forward with it, but we're not. The licenses that they've given are for big business. So where are you seeing the challenges for companies in Arkansas? Like, who are the businesses that are getting locked out of the financial system? Are there small businesses that are able to engage in cannabis business in Arkansas, and do those businesses need help, or are they all sort of backed by big business and have all the financial solutions and services they need?
Well, from what we're hearing on the street, the financial banking is going to be a big problem here in the state. Number one, because of Section 20 of the amendment. You also, for the small person, and this is also nationwide, but I think it's going to impact Arkansas harder than most, is that the Small Business Administration came out with a memo some time ago that if you conduct business with a cannabis facility, even though it's legal under your state statutes, the SBA can pull and call your loan due and payable if you do business with a cannabis company. And we've got one of the business I am aware of is a small gentleman that set up a really neat hydroponics grow system. It's all custom designed. He's very small. I think he's got three people working for him, but he does custom hydroponics, and he's got a small business loan. Well, if he so much as sells one spigot to a dispensary or grow operation, the Small Business Administration at the federal level can demand his note due and payable, or if you don't do business with the growers.
Yeah, that actually happens all over the country. Because the money and income or revenue is derived from an illegal source, any business can be in jeopardy of losing their bank accounts, can be in jeopardy of losing insurances, loans, anything. There are security companies who put security cameras in dispensaries, grow places, cultivation, fencing companies who have had their bank accounts shut down because the income and revenue is derived from the cannabis industry. Hemp and CBD are a little bit less, or a little bit more lax, but it's ultimately up to the bank. It doesn't care what the federal laws are. Hemp is supposedly legal now. More banks have shut their doors. Credit card processing, Elevon, the U.S. Bank, this is the greatest thing ever. They shut down. They're going to shut down 25,000 plus accounts within the next 45 days. So everybody credit card processing through Elevon are done. And it's going back to high risk. We've warned people that this was coming, and they wanted cheap rates. They didn't want a solid solution. They wanted cheap rates. And this is what's going to happen. So it's up to these companies. It doesn't matter what the law is. It's personal preference. And you're a fencing company, and you put a fence around a cultivator, you are in jeopardy of getting a lot of stuff shut down. They consider that money laundering because they don't know the source of that revenue coming in. So it's a challenge all over the country. We have great banks. Ourselves, we have CBD, hemp, THC banks. We can get anybody banked throughout the country as long as it's a legal state. So there's very few out there. There's only 75 or 80 banks that do business with cannabis, the THC end of it. One of our best banks is in Arkansas for CBD and hemp. So we love these guys. they've been very good, and we're doing business all over the country. But we have several CBD banks all over the country, and one's in Arkansas that we really do like, and they've been great to us.
Well, and that's why we put out the feeler to you folks initially was we had heard about that, but I think what most people don't realize is they keep going back to the Farm Bill,
Mm-hmm.
legal.
Yep.
Well, on page I think 427, there's this neat little sentence in the 2018 Farm Bill, and I'm going to quote this: affect other law. Quote, nothing in this subtitle shall affect or modify the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, Section 351 of the Public Health and Safety Act, or the authority of commerce of the Food and Drug and Securities and Human Health and Human Services. So
Mm-hmm.
if it is, quote, lawful and legal, why does it specifically state in the Farm Bill that nothing in this subchapter shall affect or modify?
Yeah, people just interpret it like you mentioned before. They interpret it a different way. They want it to be legal. They want it to be okay. That doesn't make it legal. It doesn't make it available. You can still get arrested for driving past through Nebraska with 0 THC, hemp-derived THC. You will be put in jail. It is not legal, and its interpretations is getting people in trouble, and they want to believe something. They just believe it. Well, it's legal, so we're good. And it's, hey, if that's how you want to run your business, then great. And the best wishes to you. For us, we set you up in compliant, transparent, everything, so everybody knows what you're doing. You're getting all the ins and outs. You're getting the pros and cons. When I set up processing for CBD companies and banks, I let them know everything what's going on. This is to watch out for. It's up to you. It's up to the client, the customer, the business owner to do what they're going to do, but I protect them. I said, this is what's going to get you in trouble. This is what you can get away with. This is what is the best way to go. And it's ultimately up to the business owner to decide what they want to do. Selling to states that are illegal, I give them my input on it, but they're going to do what they're going to do. No one's getting thrown in jail yet, but who knows? It may get easier, it may get harder. Obviously, credit card processing for CBD just got a whole heck of a lot harder. And thousands of people are going to be scrambling. Our phones are ringing off the hook already. It's not getting easier. I wish I could say that. I wish I could say things are getting easier. Eyes are opening up, but it's certainly not getting easier in the financial portion of it, at least that.
Well, and why we don't hear more about it is, on the news side, is the enforcement is going after the low-hanging fruit. They're going after the little guy that doesn't have the money, and it appears, and I'm gonna point this as my opinion, is the CBD market nationwide is controlled by the big boys because the little guy can't get into it, and I believe that's, in my personal opinion, that's by design because the news reports we get, because we track over 200 local papers. And there's story after story after story of the small fruit, the little guy with the CBD, the small dispensary, that kind of thing, having their stuff. Now, it may not be an arrest, but they walk in and they take $5,000 worth of inventory. They basically shut the business down.
Yep. Now, the big guys are going to be the ones to stand out, and the big guys are even getting on the news for negativity. All these pesticides and chemicals that are testing that they say they don't have. I won't mention any names, but some pretty well-known companies have been caught basically frauding their COAs, their certificate of authenticity, to get by, to save money. And they're they're under the spotlight now. There's crops being destroyed because of it. You label your hemp as a different extraction, and it's not. It's CO2 extraction instead of different types of extractions. You're going to destroy your crop. You have to. The compliance department will come in. So, I mean, just to save a buck, you can lose a lot of money in this industry. So, compliance, we beat that into people. Compliance. I will not endorse any program that I am not comfortable with, or that there's any type of sketchiness, against my better judgment. I'll flat out say it was against my better judgment in people on Elavon and U.S. Bank. Yeah, but everybody else shut down. All the other processing companies stopped doing business because Elavon was taking everybody away. So there was no other solution to put them in because everybody shut their programs down. And you couldn't do anything. So we had to, but that's why I kept warning people. But just like telling a girlfriend this morning, it's like Noah's Ark, nobody heeded the warning. Nobody heeded the warning that flood was coming. And now the flood came and everybody's beating on the doors, wondering how they can get in. And it's going to be, it's going to be rough for the next few months.
Well, that's like here in Arkansas. They've got now nothing's actually hit the news yet because it's still under investigation. We don't know where it's going yet. But one of the first grow operations that got permitted just this last week, the federal government, and they're not saying which agency, seized their inbound seed. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that one.
Yeah.
And it's you and I have taken a different approach in our different professions, but it's just like the Second Amendment issue and the rights to medicine issue here in Arkansas. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs, basically, like you've got to get involved. You've got to get down to your legislators and your federal government to we the people are the government, not the government, but like I said, we've been screaming and hollering, and it's like it bounces off of a brick wall, and then people come back and say, well, I got busted or nailed, now what do I do? Well, you can take some advice, and right now we have gotten a couple vets out of legal predicaments on the medical side by, giving them what their federal government rights are, and demanding that their attorney do their job instead of, take the money and run kind of thing. We've got a 100% success rate of getting charges nolo prossed, and we've got one guy who's cleared his year, and the other guy's got a month to go. So I can boast and say there's few, but I got 100%.
Nice. Well, that's good. Very good.
Yeah. Well, you guys clearly both have your work cut out for you. That's for sure.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Well, we're hitting the end of the half hour here, so I'm going to sort of start wrapping this up. So just to sort of say, and even those businesses that are getting in trouble for doing business with cannabis companies, Wayne, you can help those companies too, or even if they're not a cannabis company, but they're choosing to elect to work with and support other cannabis businesses.
Correct. Just because you're not a cannabis company, what the issue is your bank. Let's say, for instance, a bank. A Tier 1 bank, Bank of America, U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, Tier 1 banks, the big banks. Because of the federal laws against it, no money can be derived from the cannabis industry. Absolutely zero money. And that's why they're getting shut down. You're not going to get thrown in jail or anything like that, but they're getting shut down because it's against their federal laws. It's against policy. They can't do that. So if you all of a sudden a fencing company who usually does fences for non-cannabis, all of a sudden you want to take advantage of the cannabis industry, that's fine. We can get you set up with a bank account that is compliant, that's transparent, so they know it's Joe's Fencing Company and we fence cannabis all day long. Whatever your company name is, it's going to be transparent and it's going to be legal and compliant to be able to bank that particular money, we use credit unions and we use private banks, state chartered banks. So as long as these banks stay under their state charter and within their state regulations and laws, the feds aren't going to touch them. So, but it takes a lot of work for these banks to do that. So you have to make sure that these banks have to make sure that they stay within compliance in order to make your account compliant. So they're challenging. They're very challenging, and that's why there's only 70 or 80 banks in the country that do it properly. There's more out there, but we won't do business with them because they're doing shortcuts. And whenever you do shortcuts, things happen. They don't go well. So, and you're not protected.
Yep, and then there's banking, credit card processing, and lines and loans of credit are all sort of in the in the.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was going to say those lines and loans of credit are not only just for cannabis businesses, but can also be for the small mom and pop shop doing anything, who are looking for any sort of things that a bank won't fund directly and are looking for sort of alternative lending sources.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, just a regular coffee shop or a donut shop, a pizza shop. We do any type of alternative lending. When the bank basically says, no, we can't do you or we can't fund you, come to us. That's what we do. We fund alternative lending. And part of that alternative lending and funding is the cannabis industry. Because no bank as of yet will give a loan on the cannabis industry. Hemp, they're opening up to the fact. It's still very challenging, but I know there's only one bank in Canada that actually does it. There's only one, and it's legal countrywide there, but there's only one. So it's still challenging. You still got to go through the demonized 80 years that we've been having, the companies not liking it. If a bank president doesn't like cannabis, you're not going to have a cannabis bank. That's all there is to it. Doesn't matter if it's legal or not. It's just they're not going to do it. So you got a lot of personal opinions, a lot of personal preferences, state senators, congressmen, all those people that are pressuring against the non-legalization. There's companies, big pharma, construction, oil, cotton, all these fabrics. I mean, anything. These guys are posing against cannabis because it's going to take a lot of business away from them because of the cannabis medicine, because of the hempcrete, all the building materials. I mean, think about all these corporations that are lobbying against cannabis because it's going to put a lot of these people out of business, or they're going to take a huge chunk of the pie.
Right. Yep. And so back to states' rights kind of cuts both ways because you mentioned Nebraska and we've seen it in Idaho. Idaho says we don't care about the Farm Bill being legal on a federal level. We're going to invoke our own states' rights, and it's absolutely illegal here in all ways. We have no interest in this, coming into our state.
Yep. Yeah, poor Idaho. Great state, but they'll eventually open up their eyes. Everybody will. Hopefully. It may take years before that to happen. But just because something's legal, such as hemp, it doesn't mean doors are going to open up. If cannabis goes legal federally here, it's going to be more highly regulated. There's probably going to be more laws and rules. It's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be 10 or 15 years before things start rolling around to where it's more open and starts calming down. It's going to be years before that happens. So it's definitely getting somewhat better as far as some of the laws and regulations opening up, but down to our levels, the client level, the business owner level, it's still very challenging, and we got a long road ahead. And like Robert said, get out there and talk to your congressmen, your representatives, and go to these places. It's not going to happen on its own. Sitting in your house, eating bonbons and watching, Netflix is not going to do it. It's just going to take it a lot longer.
And actually speaking to that, Robert, I know that is one of your kind of campaign phrases is, if you do nothing, nothing gets done. So I think we can kind of leave it on that note, which is an excellent one, to get out there and do something and let us all know how we can help. So,
okay, well, you know, the biggest thing is hop on our website at Cannabis News and Politics. Like I say, our emphasis is the facts behind the headlines, okay, because information is power.
Mm-hmm.
And we are ready to file a federal case if I can ever get the funding. I filed it at state level and it got nixed, to actually end prohibition at the federal level. And like Michael said, just because because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
so,
absolutely.
Folks, I appreciate being on your show today, and we're definitely going to grab this and run with it. And if we can be of any help at all, feel free to contact us. You've got all of our contact information, and I'm sure it'll be, you know, we're definitely going to post the videos on these.
Yep.
But yeah, we're here to clean up 80 years of bad information. This is the 89th year of prohibition in the U.S.
Wow. Well, let's move forward and let's do the best we can while we're here on this earth. You know, we'll do our part and to get everybody else to try to do their part. I know it's opening up quite a bit, views and, you know, on the cannabis plant and stuff, and it's gonna be a while, but we all got to get out there and do something.
Absolutely. And as we just kind of always say, if you're interested in lines and loans of credit, loans, credit card processing, banking, email Wayne, mmjfinsol.com, and then join us next week. We're going to be talking about the CBD and hemp credit card processing, as that's kind of now headline news as how that's changing, and we'll be talking about what's happening there. So thank you all. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all next time.
Sounds good.
Have a good one. Take care.
Bye, and thanks.
Thanks.